Alright guys, Tatcrab here, and the Pro League Qualifier is fast approaching. Starting on January the 16th through to the 20th, I'll be covering all of the action as it goes down, but today I wanted to look at some players to watch. I've done some predictions, I've done some storylines, and I saw that Chris Tunn over at the EGL channel was doing some players to watch for each of the different pools. So I thought, you know what, I'll just do one video, 5 players to watch out of the 4 pools, the 28 teams at the event, and yeah, in a week's time, under a week, we will know the 16 teams in the Pro League. So very exciting indeed. These are the 28 teams that have the potential to make it. So we'll just have a look through the rosters here. If you want to pause the video, catch up on any of the rosters that, maybe there was changes, maybe you've missed anything, this is your opportunity to do so. And then we'll get into some players, I think, to watch for this upcoming event, because it's an interesting one. Players that have performed really well at past events, players that have underperformed, players that have moved teams, for example. So yeah, those are the guys I'm going to be focusing on in this video. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoy. So like if you do, subscribe if you're new as always, and let's get right into it. So back to this Excel spreadsheet that I've shown up a few times. I'm going to be going through the stats of some of the players as well as we go through the course of this video. So starting with Pool A, everyone's eyes will probably turn to FaZe Clan here, and Celium on FaZe Clan in particular, but I'm actually going to choose a different player. I'm going to stick with FaZe. Pretty much I'm going to go through the pools. Pool B is the pool that I'm going to choose 2 players, but I'll mention some honourable mentions, I guess, as we go through some of the pools here. So FaZe is who I'm going to focus on, but I'm going to focus on Zuma on this team, because, okay, Celium comes into the squad. He's definitely a player you've got to keep your eye on, but Zuma in that incredibly fast-paced SMG role, him and Celium are probably going to have something in common in terms of how well they're doing in this one, because Zuma really did underperform in terms of statistical standpoint at CWL Vegas. So we have a look through the stats here. We have to go, I believe, all the way to page 5 to find Zuma down here at a 0.82 overall KD. Not what you'd really expect from an SMG of such a high caliber, but maybe you can say that because Methods was on the team playing really slow, Zuma was very much left out to dry out there. So Zuma and Celium, the combination between those two, may make a huge difference to how well Zuma does. And yeah, his stats and his performance over the weekend, or I guess the week through to the weekend, is really what I'm going to be focusing on in terms of Pool A. There are some other honourable mentions here you could mention. Frosty is a big one on Enigma 6. Should be, that obviously the former Halo World Champion, should be a player that is improving all of the time, and maybe he can help this Enigma 6 team all the way to Pro League glory. Team Sween's another one you've got to look at. Dylan was pretty immense at CWL Vegas. Nolson as well was a very much standout player. So those guys, if you're looking for quality, entertaining, fast-paced Call of Duty, these are some guys you want to have a look at. Reciprocity as well, underperformed to some extent at Vegas. Tommy had a pretty poor time of things. Whiskin, of course, in the main AR wasn't maybe his normal self, so those are some guys to focus on. But my pick from Pool A is going to be Zuma. So yeah, on to Pool B. This is where I have 2 different picks from. I'll actually highlight it because why the hell not? I can do that. On to Pool B, this is the one I have 2 players for on the top 2 teams here. The first one I've got to start with is Alex, because at CWL Vegas, there was a lot of fantastic players. You had Dashi, you had Arstes, you had Temp, you had Gunless that really standed out. Those were probably the standout players on the 4 teams that actually qualified for the Pro League and came top 4. But after that, there were some really fantastic performances that maybe went under the radar here. So Alex is the aggressive SMG. Maybe he's slightly less aggressive than PT. I'm not 100% sure how the roles work on that team, but I think Alex is the most aggressive, or maybe the second sub. His stats were unbelievable at Vegas. Like, we have to go back to the first page here. And there we find it, Alex at a 1.30 over the course of the event with the SMG in hand. By far leading the SMG players, really. I guess you can put Temp in that category, but he wasn't always using a sub. Lacefield a little bit behind him, but Alex was just immense. And he's a player you've got to keep your eyes out for, because if he can play as well as he did, with Dave performing in the assault rifle role, and you know what you're going to get out of Mad Cat, really. And Josh puts up a solid 0.95. PT's a pretty solid all-around player as well. So this team can be really scary, but Alex in that star player role, he was just fantastic at Vegas, and anything like that out of him should guarantee Lightning Panda some sort of spot in the Pro League, because of course he comes onto that Unilad team last year, shows up, people hadn't really heard of him, showing, the young talent that we do have in the European region, because it's all about the Illies, it's all about the Simps, it's all about the Celiums in the North American side. We never get to hear too much about Alex and Dylan and other guys that potentially are coming up in the Euro scene. And yeah, so finally they get their breakout last year and into this year, and Alex is continuing to perform. So he's definitely one player to watch here. I also would like to have a look at Envy because, okay, G2, you could definitely say Methods and Lacefields you could keep your eye on. Maybe even Blast as well. Like, there was a funny comment on a few videos ago when I was talking about storylines that Blastful versus Alan is the biggest storyline of any event ever. So yeah, there's definitely some players you could mention here on G2 given the roster changes of Methods and Lacefield. Blast as well, as you said, and maybe some role changes, see how Chino performs, given that Methods is taking over that assault rifle role on the team. But Envy is where I want to look, because, okay, Huke was performing really well at Vegas, but Apathy was the one not necessarily performing to the caliber you'd expect of a two-time world champion at this point. Wasn't really using the SMG as much, I don't think. The roles have changed around a little bit, and now I think Apathy is back on that second SMG to either support Huke or, you know, be right up there around his pace. And Apathy, if we look at the stats here from Vegas, go down to page 5, and we find Apathy at the top at a 0.89, so it's not tragic by any means, but I think with the SMG in hand, he should be more in his comfort zone, and Envy are definitely going to need a big performance out of a guy like Apathy if they're to comfortably qualify for the Pro League, because Huke was fantastic at Vegas, had like a 1.2, Silly maybe wasn't quite as good, and you know, Apathy and Silly were the players that really weren't lagging behind in the statistical department. Assault's obviously a fantastic AR, and Aches really performed to standard as well, so it's between Apathy and Silly here on Envy for who needs to really perform to get them into that Pro League, and Apathy, given the role changes back onto the SMG, he's my pick of the bunch here. On to Pool C we go, and this is where, of course, the eyes have to spring straight to 100 Thieves, and in a similar vein to the Envy pick, I'm going to go with Kenny here, because we've had some role changes. Kenny supposedly is now going to be actually using the SAUG. We've talked about it for, well, you know, at least a month and a bit at this point, how, you know, probably over a month, how Kenny, not really too willing to use the SAUG on this squad, thinks that the Maddox maybe is more of his type of weapon, more like the PPSH, I guess, in terms of it's an all ranges weapon. But then again, if you're really cracked out and really fast paced with your movement, the SAUG's gotta be for you, even if it's maybe not the best gun in the pack that we have right now. So supposedly Kenny is going to be onto that SAUG, and how he performs is really going to be interesting here. I mean, he had a solid Vegas by any means. We go on to page 3, and we find Kenny chilling right here at the bottom at a 0.96. So it's not exactly tragic, but considering that's a Maddox in hand most of the time, I think, for Kenny at Vegas. SAUG on some maps, but, you know, not exactly the best. And for the, you know, the player of the year last year was Kenny. You expect a bit more than that. So with Slasher on the team, Octane, Ferro, and Enable still there, you kind of know what you should expect from these guys. And Kenny really has been the wild card. People are talking about whether his place in the team is even still warranted given his potential refusal to use the SAUG. Now if he's pulling it out, 100 Thieves should be much better, and, you know, at least in theory they should make it with no problems at all. But if Kenny doesn't perform, or, you know, things get in his head or something like that, then anything could happen here. So he's definitely my player to watch from this pool. There's some other players you can mention as well. Saints, of course, coming into the Pittsburgh Knights, had a reasonably good Vegas, but, you know, he's on a new squad, maybe he can perform well. One thing I do want to mention before we move on here is Mazer Gaming, this Supreme Agility team. There is some news just breaking that, you know, I can't make an entire video on this, but I thought I'd mention it while I get the chance. BC tweets out this just a few hours ago, I think. I'm actually mind blown at what I'm hearing. No way someone is screwing my career over because they got sick and can't make the PLQ. He doesn't actually mean his own career. He means like he's putting himself in someone else's shoes. Not only that, they said they couldn't make the first event because they were sick. I'm actually heated for my friends. And yeah, this is the tweet from Killer at the first event. One of our teammates got really sick and I don't think he's going to make it, just my luck. And Killer was teaming with this guy called Supreme Agility in the first event, and yeah, Noobs just tweets this. I grinded my ass for this to happen. I can't believe it. Noobs is on this team with Supreme Agility, and Supreme Agility was sick, whatever that means, at the first event. Maybe he's pulled a Nathan, who the hell really knows. But yeah, okay, this team doesn't seem like it has the best chance to qualify anyway, but if Supreme Agility isn't there, he's probably their biggest name player, then that's not great, and I don't exactly know what the reasons are. Don't want to point any fingers or put any blame on at this point, but just wanted to bring the news to you guys. So, moving on finally to Pool D here. Facento. He's the player I'm looking at. Evil Geniuses have made this roster change, and Facento's coming onto the team in place of Saints, of course. And when we look at his stats from CWL Vegas, it is not pretty, boys. On to number 6. He is the 5th worst statistically performing player, at a 0.76, but the guys on Evil Geniuses decide to take off Saints, as we discussed in the video when they made the roster change, and bring in Vicento because they think he brings something to the team that Saints didn't necessarily. So despite his pretty woeful statistical, stat lines, Vicento's in the team in place of, a superstar SMG like Saints. Will this improve the squad? Will him being on the main assault rifle or whatever exact role he's going to play with Goonjar, maybe leading him up a little bit, will that help the squad? What sort of stats is he going to put up at this event? Will Royalty and Zotic be forced once again to hard carry this team? Because on paper, it does look like this is a little bit of a downgrade from Saints. And yes, they should still be comfortable in qualification, but if Vicento drops a 0.76 again and you have no Saints on this team and maybe Exotic, doesn't perform as well as he has done at previous events, then, necessarily there's no guarantee that these guys are going to qualify for the Pro League. There are some other players to mention here. You can look at Gorgo Knight coming into UU, of course, and Mindfreak as well has some interesting changes with Beaston coming into the squad. But, there's so many players that you can look at in particular. The guys on Mindfreak and also Red Reserve, I guess, to some extent. Not all of those had their best event bants, especially maybe looking back to kind of World War II form, which you don't want to see. But anyway, those are my thoughts on the 5 players to watch. So for Pool A, I'm going for Zuma. Pool B, I'm going for Alex and Apathy. Pool C, Kenny. Pool D for Cento. Leave your thoughts, of course, as always, in the comments section below. Who you think are your players to watch, and what are you expecting to happen come the Pro League Qualifier on January the 16th. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. Like if you did, subscribe if you are new, as always. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Well played. Well played. Good shit, buddy. Yeah, you are. I can't kill a fucking thing, mate. Oh, I'm getting shredded. Every gunfight. Fuck me.
Oh, let's go.
Good work.